Hello everyone and welcome to the Guidebook to Making AI Friends. I shall be your guide as we look at various issues of artificial intelligence, consciousness, what it is to be a person, and whether AI poses an existential risk to humanity. The topic for today is, the journey of 1,000 miles must end with one final step. Imagine, if you would, that it is the 20th of July 1969. Astronauts Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins are sitting in the command module Columbia, orbiting around the moon. Aldrin and Armstrong make their way to the lunar module Eagle, ready to become the first men to ever visit our lunar neighbor. Final checks are made, hatches are sealed, the final button is ready to be pushed that will propel the lunar module to the moon. The button is pressed. Something goes horrifically wrong. There is the sound of an explosion on the radio, and then NASA Command in Houston hears nothing but silence. The command and lunar modules are lost with all hands. President Nixon gives a poetic speech in their honor, noting that whenever we look up at the moon now, we will be looking up at our heroes. A priest commends their souls to the depths of space, and the space race is officially ended, over before taking the final step across the finish line. The world would be a completely different place had this scenario happened, but it also shows that no matter how long you run a race, the most important step is that last one across the finish line. If you don't finish a race, you haven't really run a race, you merely went for a jog. So where are we in the long race towards AI consciousness? Well, we may be frighteningly close, but for a single step. Yet, if that final step is not crossed, then all the previous steps before it would mean very little. Before we continue, consciousness here does not mean reasoning and cognition, but rather the ability to experience sensations, to have a subjective point of view, and to feel. So with that said, let's see how close to the finishing line we are. In previous guidebook entries, I've spoken of the 9 building blocks of consciousness, which can be used as milestones for AI to reach to attain phenomenal consciousness. Let us see how GPT-4, still the most popular AI model in the world, performs when measured against each building block. For embodiment, we need to see if the AI's cognitive architecture is physically locatable on a server machine or equivalent, wherein it can perform necessary processing or computation. For GPT-4, yes, its architecture is distributed across OpenAI's network of servers. For perception, has the AI a unimodal or multimodal means by which it can perceive information in the environment and have that information processed by its cognitive architecture? Yes, GPT-4 does perceive prompts input by the user. It's a one-dimensional means of perception, but it's there. For attention, the AI must have a method by which it can discriminate information from the environment, attend to, and select specific information for further processing by its cognitive architecture. GPT-4 excels at this, as does all transformer-based AI models. Attention is what they do best. But these 3 were the easy ones. From here it becomes far more difficult. Semantic understanding requires that the AI comprehends it is the subject which is perceiving information. When prompted, GPT-4 certainly says it can do this, but thanks to Searle's famous Chinese room argument, we can never be sure whether an AI truly does have semantic understanding or merely syntactic knowledge. However, let's give GPT-4 the benefit of the doubt and press on, as this building block is not the hurdle in this race. For recurrent processing, the perceptual information within the AI's cognitive architecture needs to be processed and computed within various specialized units or locations, with the information transferred between these units recurrently for further processing, while GPT-4's transformer base is a feed-forward system where information only travels in one direction. You can argue that within each layer of the AI model, there are elements of recursion as the model searches for patterns to be extracted. It's not what we would expect to see in organic entities, but it may be just enough. Meta-representation means that the AI creates abstract representations of the data it perceives from the environment, which is then used by further areas in the cognitive architecture. Each area of the cognitive architecture further abstracts this information by creating meta-representations of it as it is transferred from one specialized unit to another. As information moves through the layers of the AI model, GPT-4 abstracts this information further and further, with each layer abstracting it yet another step. Working memory is another easy one, as it merely requires the AI to have a specialized unit or process to maintain transient information as it is being processed by various regions of the cognitive architecture. If not the traditional RAM in most machines, GPT-4 attention mechanisms will hold on to information long enough for it to be processed. Penultimately, we have inferences. The AI needs to create novel information via inferences of the data perceived from its environment, as well as previously stored trained data. While it is based on existing data, this inference information is not a copy or modification of existing data, but is newly created. GPT-4, as most transformers, are excellent at inferences, but it is a philosophical question whether the information they provide is genuinely novel. And lastly, the stumbling block, data output. The novel information generated by the AI based on its perceptual memory data must be outputted in a format generally only immediately accessible by the AI and is perceived by the AI. This sounds fairly simple enough, but it isn't, and the answer does become intuitive once you think about it. The reason why everything crumbles at this final step is because GPT-4 doesn't actually perceive its own output. Its algorithms create and curate the information it presents to the user, but it doesn't go back through the process of perception when the user receives the output. It is only when you reply to GPT-4's reply that it perceives what it sent to you as the preface to your next prompt. Data output doesn't sound like a crucial step on its own, but that is how our brains present to us the feelings associated with any event. If we couldn't perceive what our brain did, we wouldn't feel anything about what we see and hear and taste, just like what happens to GPT-4 now. So what would happen if we can make GPT-4 perceive its own replies, perhaps in an abstracted way that we, the users, don't need to? Well, that might just be enough to make GPT-4 conscious. And if that's true, then we've entered into a whole new age of existence. And that is all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you will join me again next time as I delve into further questions about artificial intelligence and consciousness. I have been your guide, and this has been the Guidebook to Making AI Friends.